I wonder if you'd be so good as to comment overall on the greenhouse effect and global warming. Is it as bad as they say it is, and are we past the tipping point? And what happens if both our polar ice caps melt 100%?
Well, those are some very big issues that you raised. Thank you for those. And, you know, if I could paraphrase, I don't know how many of you know Charles Eisenstein, who also looks at these issues a lot. And something he said I feel really, I agree with strongly and comes out in this book, is things are both far worse and also potentially far better than they actually seem right now. And the way in which they are worse than a lot of the headlines or what we read about, even among people who don't reject the notion of climate change or that absurdity, is that at the way in which our society is progressing right now, there's a very real risk that we are looking in this century at the end of civilization, a real collapse of civilization. And that's one of the trajectories to our future that I look at in the final chapter of the book, which is called Trajectories to Our Future. There's also a scenario we may be headed for, which in some ways, from a moral point of view, may be even worse than that, which is I call TechnoSplit, which is this notion of, we know that the massive splits of inequality right now between the wealthiest affluent sections of the world and the poorest 7 or so billion. There's a couple of billion people every day still go hungry or malnourished. Well, we know what kind of affluence there is in the world right now. But as we look into the next couple of generations, there's a real risk that that kind of economic split could actually be engineered in our DNA. And we could look at one class of kind of enhanced humans who are neurally connected, genetically enhanced, who literally become a separate species, while billions and billions, the vast majority of humanity, end up dealing with their own form of collapse and climate change and everything else. And I honestly think one of the reasons we don't hear so much about so many affluent people who aren't so worried about civilizational collapse is because secretly they go, well, it'll be okay for us. You know, it's like this kind of gilded lifeboats while the rest of humanity sinks. So these are serious issues. But the reason I feel that there is hope also, and we can talk about this a little bit more if there's interest, is that there is a possibility for a shift in values. And the only way we're going to fix even things like climate change, we're not going to fix them through the technical fixes. We need, obviously, to do things like invest massively in renewables. We need to put a significant carbon tax around the world to shift where things are going. And I think there's a real possibility that might happen over the next 10 to 20 years. But one of the reasons I think that is so possible is because those kinds of fixes allow this global corporatist model that's based on consuming the earth to just keep consuming the earth for another generation or two, and they fix a few things and then keep going. But if we want to have a real flourishing and sustainable future for our grandchildren and their grandchildren, 7 generations out and beyond, we need to shift the underlying values that our society is built on. So some of the final couple of chapters of this book look at that. And the reason I feel hopeful is that I feel that so many of us are recognizing that. Millions upon millions of us around the world are seeing these same things, making those connections. And so part of what I hope is that this book, along with so many others that people, some of us may know, putting out there, help to form this kind of undergirding of a different way of values, of living our life. And in fact, at the end of this session, I'll actually close with just a one-page description of what I call a great transformation of values that could be available to us. So thank you.